Welcome back to the Grand Finals, the last game of the Grand Finals of the Blackstone Owl Store Championship. On the left, we have John Delisandri playing Noise. On the right, we have Timmy Wong playing Sync. For those who have not been following along, John won Game 1. Timmy was advantaged, so this is it. Game 2, here we go. I'm Ben, and thank you for joining us today. Mandatory draw on Timmy's side. He does have an agenda, a turnpike, some other ice. I believe that's a hedge fund, some sea source nonsense, maybe mid-season, along with a agenda that might be, I think that's a food in Timmy's hand. So, pretty good stuff. We're probably going to see Timmy ice hedge fund. That seems to make sense. I had the pleasure of playing against Timmy earlier in the tournament where he stomped me with this deck. It is very good. So, Timmy going with the ice hedge fund ice instead of ice hedge fund, mixing it up a little bit. John going for the draw. Playing Noise is going to be really helpful here. John can just kind of play a bunch of stuff, mill Timmy out. It's going to be a very, very annoying game with the 40-card deck of Sync. Timmy, of course, running 44 because it makes a lot of sense. John going with the Lamprey, hitting something immediately, and going into HQ, trying to get the pressure on. For those who don't know, John is running kind of a denial Noise, which is pretty sweet, so that Lamprey is a big piece of that. Timmy rezzing the turnpike, and John losing a buck, Timmy losing another buck. Oh, hitting the food. That is not what you wanted out of the 5 cards, or probably 4 cards in Timmy's hand at that point. 3 cards, actually, if I can count correctly. The global food was not what he wanted to see go this early, especially against Noise, where it's so easy for other agendas to just find their way into archives, and against Sync, where it's a 40-card deck as well. So you're fighting a lot of stuff, and going in for the Siphon, John is going to lose another buck, take another tag from the turnpike. Clearly, John doesn't give any craps about the tags with the siphons and the lack of money. Timmy can dump all of his money into the turnpike trace, although that basically accomplishes the same thing for John. Timmy doesn't have money, and John might not have money either, but at least Timmy doesn't have money. And ending with one stealing the $1 because it's $1. You don't want NBN to have it. And taking the tags. So I guess a net loss of 2 credits and a couple clicks on that run if you're keeping score, or at least if you consider that to be the case. But bringing NBN to 0 money on first turn after hedge funding up to a bunch of credits feels really good, especially now since John hasn't really lost anything, just a couple of, or $1 really, but that $1 is what he paid for Lamprey. So the tags, not a meaningful source of, not a meaningful setback for John. Although he does need to be aware, he does know Timmy plays 1 Scorch. That's what caught him last time. So John will need to get his Plascrates out ASAP, or at least end his turn with a bunch of cards in hand. The medium play here is going to be super good. Timmy doesn't have money, had to purge the Lamprey away. So we see, and that's nice. John hitting the snare, finding out about that. I think he might have seen that on the last game, but hitting it while NBN doesn't have any money, really good. That medium dig is so strong. John's going to be able to run in again and see 2 brand new cards and that Jackson again, or he can check archives. I think seeing the deck is a little bit more important for John at this point, but I could also see the value of 2 new cards that he had hit in archives. Either way, John sees 2 fresh cards, so really, really good. Although the Jackson, actually, you know what, with the Jackson and John knowing that the Jackson was there, I think trying to hit archives might have been a slightly better play. At least that way, if John had hit an agenda, he would have been able to secure the steal there. And of course, Timmy installing on the Jackson and gaining a couple of bucks. John knows that's a Jackson, so now any of those potential agendas that were in archives are safe, and he cannot go for it. Or I guess he could try and force the Jackson res, shuffle up R&D a little bit. I believe that was same old Siphon there. bringing Timmy back down to 0 credits. A really great heads-up play. John could go into R&D here and see 3 new cards, which would be very, very strong. I'm not sure if he's going to, or I think Timmy's actually considering whether or not he wants to increase the strength of the turnpike, which makes sense. It's kind of, where do you want your money to go? Is it going to be in the runner's pockets, or is it going into the trace to figure out where Noise is again? I think here, I think Timmy should just get rid of the credits. It's not worth letting Noise, although if Timmy has an agenda in hand, then the points might be, or the money might be better. He doesn't have an agenda in hand. So I think Timmy has to let John in and steal the money. Or no, excuse me. Timmy has to pay the money so John doesn't steal the dollars. I guess at least this way. Okay, so Timmy's forcing John to respect it, giving him an option. I can understand that, but going in for 3 new cards and a bunch of ice in the first pop-up. See, I'm not sure here. I think John should be trying to force that Jackson res. I know he couldn't after the siphon on this turn in particular, but checking archives, I feel, is really strong here. It would have been strong a couple turns ago. At least force Timmy to play honest, and of course installing that pop, gaining a credit, 2 credits, installing the pop-up over R&D. That's going to turn off John's runs there for at least a little while. Until John sees a Parasite, that will turn off John's R&D runs. Although I'm not actually sure how many or if John is running Parasite, admittedly. I'm positive John's running 3 siphons out of this build, or at least I'm pretty positive John is going to be running 3 siphons out of this Noise build. So he might be playing 2 Parasites and a Hades Shard for the rest of his influence. Might be 2 Parasites or 3 Parasites. John might only be playing 2 siphons, so that's another option. I actually do not know. Comment if you want to. I'm sure John is more than happy to share his deck tech here. And going with the Purge on Timmy's turn, I think that was a solid play. Timmy now has the R&D short up a little bit. That probably is, I actually didn't see what Timmy installed over R&D, but that might be an Archangel. But John has to respect it. And he has to respect a wraparound play, which of course Timmy could res if John hits that pop-up. So lots of things. R&D for right now is turned off. John does have a pretty significant advantage. And instead going for HQ, force Timmy to lose a buck since John has nothing left to lose other than a tag, but clearly that is not a concern of his. It's really, really nice. John did score the four points on his turn too. So going up that quickly against an NBN build like this, where it's already a smaller deck, Timmy does run the global foods, so the density is a little bit lower than you might typically see out of an NBN deck like this. But either way, it's a real big setback, and Timmy is now forced on his heels. Those accesses out of both HQ and Archives, well, HQ, R&D, and Archives, thank you, Noise, cannot really happen. Timmy doesn't have the room, the wiggle room there to really afford to allow John to score any more points. And the tags could come in. They could come up. You saw in Timmy's hand one of his secret texts. What kind of destroyed what definitely destroyed me earlier in the game against us was the information overload. And so, what were they? Were those 2 agendas? No, it was just the one, I think. Yeah, I think that's a breaking news. Okay, so breaking news and a closed accounts were the 2 cards that John hit. So yeah, see, this is kind of what I was talking about. If John had run Archives after seeing the Jackson, he would have hit a breaking news, and that basically puts John at game point. John, I don't know if he realizes whether or not Timmy is playing the breaking news, but that's a huge piece of information to have. maybe not anymore, since John has A, played Timmy before, and B, already is tagged to hell. So anything that Timmy could do with tags, he can pretty much do anyway now. But either way, going up to game point against NBN is really, really good. I guess, there is the possibility that Timmy just, that John steals another breaking news after that, but highly, highly unlikely. I don't expect Timmy to be playing more than 2, although I guess I could see, 3 in the 15 minutes, but that would increase his density or increase his density quite a bit. Timmy drawing into the Scorch. John has to respect it, although he doesn't know. This is actually below the dig, and Timmy did just shuffle with Jackson, so that Scorched Earth is really, really nice. I don't think we'll see John end his turn with less than 4 cards anymore after losing in the winners finals a couple games ago. John doesn't have that short-term memory, so you gotta have short-term memory when you're playing any competitive game. Sometimes can't let other games get you on tilt, but John has to use that knowledge, and I guarantee that he is at this point. Timmy in a pretty good spot. If he can get that hedge fund off, Timmy with 2 ice in all of those remotes is going to be really, really helpful. The Josh B is a potential issue here. If John hits a DLR, that is going to cause some problems. The Vigil will continue to give John a little bit more card draw. He might actually not be running Wild Cakes, and instead might be going with the Vigil for card draw. Since this is a denial build, generally Timmy any corp really, is going to have his maximum cards in hand between purging and between just not having money and having to click for credits. So a nice little way for additional card draw. It is a little bit of a faux pas, I guess would be the right word, not to run Grimoire out of noise, but it is a cool variant here. I like the Vigil, especially with what John is going to do and going for here. That might be a signal that John plays only 2 siphons and needing the additional draw, but again, I don't think that is the case. John most likely plays 3 siphons in this deck, and obviously to great effect. He's got him all the way to the grand finals, and I think, speaking of, that might have been another siphon. Oh, and John, no, that's a vamp. John taking the tag for Joshua B, getting 5 clicks. Oh, there we go. So there's the DLR. So running archives for the central run, DLR 3 more times. Thank you, Joshua B, for 5 clicks. Timmy probably is going to dump that pop-up window over archives because it's good. Why not? And the wireless net pavilion is protecting John's DLR and Josh B. Timmy's in a little bit of a predicament now. I think Timmy gains that's tough. I think Timmy has to gain a credit here. Ooh, yeah, that's a really tough spot. So Timmy wants to play the hedge fund to trash some stuff. Timmy could also flip his ID, which isn't a bad call. I really don't think John's going to be removing any of these tags anyway, but he could flip the ID, negate the penalty from Wireless Net Pavilion, and start popping stuff. So John can't prevent any resources being trashed. Timmy flips, trash Wireless Net Pavilion for 2, trash DLR for free. That might be his best play here, because, John does get the 5 clicks again, but it doesn't, as long as there aren't points in archives. Okay, so that's what Timmy goes for. He's actually going for the hedge fund play, get a little bit of money. That is a really, really dangerous play. John can DLR 5 times here. That is going to make it so Timmy has 7 face down cards in archives. That's a lot of pressure with no Jacksons in sight. With no Jacksons in sight here. So Timmy's got to really hope he top decks something, or John's DLRs miss here. I can't imagine John is not going to mill at least 4 cards. Maybe he mills 4, checks archives, or maybe he installs a virus or something. Actually going for the draw instead, which is really, really surprising to me. I feel like he should be, John needs to just be DLRing here. Although, assuming it is a pop-up in archives and running archives, Timmy clarifying here that the tag that John's just taking his Joshua B tag at the beginning of the turn. It's kind of, it doesn't make a difference, but just for record keeping, Psycho Beal is always an option. The pop-up protecting the global food and an NAPD. John does not have the money for the NAPD. Obviously going to take the global food. The mills, the DLR mills and noise mills are killing Timmy this game. Not seeing the, well, basically he's getting everything but his agendas in hand. And Timmy is really at a threat here. Timmy has some money, but he doesn't have any way to get the NAPD back right now. And with 5 clicks out of Josh B, John is going to be able to potentially run into that server next turn and steal it. If John steals 2 credits, actually John only needs 1 credit in order to threaten the steal at the end of this turn. So if he takes 2 credits, John could gain 3 credits, run archives, and steal the NAPD, barring Timmy having a way to save it. Even another piece of ice here would be really big, and he needs to end the run. Even another pop-up would give Timmy another turn. The tags don't matter. Timmy seeing another NAPD, that is really not what he wants to see. I do notice a piece of ice in Timmy's hand. I cannot make out what it is. Might be an information overload, could be a Gutenberg. In both cases, that is not particularly helpful. Timmy flipping his ID and trashing Josh B and DLR. Very reasonable. John, though, can still gain 3 credits and run R&D. That is enough to give him the bucks. I'm not sure why Timmy flipped his ID and did those 2 this turn. I think he was thinking that he could blow up the Josh B and prevent John from stealing it, but sadly not the case here. John able to steal the NAPD and sweep the rug out from Timmy Wong, winning the Blackstone Owl Store Championship, John's second of the season. Timmy still walks away with the bye though, so he gets the benefits. Check back later, I'll have a lot more Netrunner action. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.